Cavs faithful, welcome back to the Cavs Encapsulated crew. You know the normal: Justin Harold, Logan LeDuc, and Jeffrey Santa. But today we have a special guest, Mack Perry, host of It's Cavalier Pod and a contributor over at Fear the Sword and KJGNBA. Also a Buckeyes fan. Good to know. Ohio State fan in the house.
Yeah.
Logan's not a huge fan
I'm
of
not
that.
digging that. Logan's
Logan's on the Michigan side, but me and Justin
can agree on the Cavs.
We can agree on the Cavs, and we're going to stick with the Cavs tonight. We're going to stick with the Cavs today. Whenever you're watching this, we just wanted to hop on, have a conversation with Mr. Mack Perry, because we've interacted on Twitter a lot as just four individuals, not even Cleveland Pulse and not even, It's Cavalier Pod, just in general, personal Twitters, commingling, however you guys may view it. But we've had a lot of cordial conversations with him, and we wanted to finally sit down and talk in person with him over on the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. So, Mac, how's it going tonight?
I'm feeling good, man. Like I was telling you guys off air, I'm a little tired. My daughter didn't know if I'd make it, but by the grace of God, she fell asleep.
No, we're glad. We're glad she cooperated.
Right, man. I'm right there with you. But no, man, always good to interact with like-minded individuals, Cavs fans. Everybody has such a different perspective in regards to this
Say
team.
that again.
You have different differing opinions in regards to it, and it's just always good to hear somebody else for a change rather than continuously hearing my own voice.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's what me and Justin have always said since we started this channel too. Since we started the Cleveland Pulse, we would be doing this if we had 0 viewers, we would still be doing this, because it's talking with buddies, talking with fellow fans, and that's what we really love to do. So I think we're going to hop right into it. What we want to know, Mac, is, because I saw you tweet about it, that when we traded for Donovan Mitchell, you didn't know how to feel. But now it's kind of simmered down a little bit. You've had time to digest. What was your initial reaction to the Donovan Mitchell trade, and how do you feel now?
Well, to be honest with you fellas, my initial reaction was shock. I really honestly felt shocked, because you guys, you follow me. We've interacted before, as you said, and I've always really felt highly about Colin Sexton, and his prospects, his future and whatnot, and a very unfortunate injury that he had. And then you look at the other pieces that were included in the deal, and Lauri Markkanen, who I feel honestly, and I've said this a few times, since, I really feel like Lauri's presence is probably going to be missed the most here.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of downplay just how big the spacing element that he provided was to making that lineup work. I mean, 35, I want to say he shot like 35.8% from 3-point range this past season. And that's not anything to gloat over. But when you consider that the other players within the front court, your other 2 7-footers, one is not yet consistent, but can, drop the 3 ball every now and then. And then the other is not going to take that shot outside of a heave at the end of the shot clock. So having Lauri out there to space the floor is a big deal. The guy took over 6 threes a game, that's not necessarily a production that you can just glance on over. And having Donovan Mitchell in town, Donovan's in love with the 3 ball. So he almost took 10 threes a game last season. So if he brings that same type of mentality to the Cavs this season, that'll help make up for what's being lost. But just to kind of circle back here, I felt shocked. All the pieces that were included, and that's without even mentioning Ochai Agbaji, who, you fellas, I'm sure you've probably seen all the content that I put out on the draft this season. I was like, well, damn, like I just spent a whole bunch of time on evaluating some of these guys, all for it not to really matter. But at the end of the day, the thing is this: everything with Colin Sexton, his future, how he would, end up, playing and maturing with this team, was all hypothetical. We know what Donovan Mitchell is. We've seen Donovan Mitchell operate in big time scenarios. We've seen this guy put up on average over 28, I think, points per game in the playoffs. This is a big time player. That I take nothing away from Colin Sexton. I'm still a huge fan of his, but at the end of the day, this is one of those trades where you kind of have to take a swing. And I do applaud Kobe Altman for doing that. So after sleeping on it, I do feel good about it because the Cavs ended up consolidating. They clearly were not they weren't sold just yet on Colin's fit. And I think that probably could have happened this season had Colin not gotten injured. And I think, the 16 points per game that he put up fell right in line with Jordan Clarkson this season. And I take that with a grain of salt because I think you're not going to get the 24.3 points per game scorer Colin was in his third year. You wouldn't have got that, but I think he would have got something like 18 to 21 points on the year within the scheme of what the Cavs like to do. We know their bread and butter is defense. And honestly, I think that was another big gripe there too. Although, the 6'1" backcourt still remains.
We didn't really grow. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I know it's really long-winded, but I'm feeling overall generally excited about this deal because when you just on paper, when you look at that, the 4 players, because we know that there's a hole at the 3 and we don't know what's going to happen.
That's the next question. Actually, you're way ahead of us.
All right. Let me not jump too far.
No,
you're
good.
When you look at the starting backcourt and then at least 2 of the 3 of the front court, and Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, damn, is that one of the best 4 foursomes in the league? I mean, that's up there. And
young too.
And the crazy thing about that is, fellas, I don't know how much actually that vaults us up in the East because the East is just so damn good.
Yeah,
it's true. And I on a real human note, I think that's a fair assessment on the trade. It's that I think especially sports fans, the fanatics, we try to stay fans and not be fanatics. You're going to be fanatics once in a while, but if you get to stay a fan for the most part, I think that people get into this mindset that you have to be mad about this, or you have to think that the trade was great, or you have to think the trade wasn't great, or we gave up too many pieces. You could have a standpoint where you acknowledge what we gave up and also say this was the correct move for the franchise. It could be a mutual trade. When general managers sit down to make an offer, they want both sides to come out better than where they started. They don't look and try to say, hey, can I fleece someone all the time? Obviously, you're going to try to get one over on some of your competitors. But I think as far as the assessment of that trade goes, like you said, it's a lot to talk about. But Justin, nobody that I know of who's a Cavs fan was a bigger Donovan Mitchell fan than you. So I kind of want to throw this question to you too. And just based off of what Mack said, how are you feeling, a week out?
It was incredible in the moment. Obviously, being at work, I hate when it happens during work, but it's
always the worst time
because I can't go on and be super active about it, but the energy boost that I got to finish that day was just through the roof. I couldn't remember the last time a trade or a move happened.
Odell.
All the way back to Jarvis Landry is my biggest one. When Jarvis got traded
changed
to
the
us,
culture there.
Yeah, I was I love Jarvis Landry. I love everything that he had to do in Miami to put himself on the map. He wasn't the flashiest guy like Odell was, but he was a hard worker. And man, just the sensation of getting all excited again for a big move that you could tell is going to have a significant impact on your team, which is my initial and still remaining feeling on this trade. Mack talked about how good Donovan is and what he gives you in a night, shooting 10 3-pointers a game. I think I saw a tweet earlier and I want to find it, but it was something about his catch and shoot percentage and it being, if he was on the Cavs last year, it would have been the highest. And that's something that at the 2 spot, at the 1 spot, really, we didn't have that all year long. And I think that's going to be something that's huge moving forward for the team, spacing wise, and just my head just goes on a roll when I think about Donovan Mitchell with this team and what to expect and what to look forward to and what to talk about. But I still get all jittery. I'm still all jittery right now about it.
Did I see another number that he had 232 made threes last season?
That's the tweet I've
Cavs
seen.
franchise. That's a weapon at the end of the day. I kind of wanted to share. I forgot to mention. So my story. I live in Texas, Mac. So when I heard it, I was actually in the bathroom, sprinted into the office. I was like, Cavs got Donovan Mitchell, and everyone's like, who are the Cavs? Who's Donovan Mitchell? Like there was never a
Who are
time that
the
I
Cavs?
was never a time I was so upset to not be like in Cleveland and being able to just immediately jump on. But I had these guys, and we were in our. I think I immediately said, "Bro, Cavs, Mitchell." I think that's pretty much all I said. That's all that had to be said.
I didn't believe it at first. Like
No,
I saw that.
it really
Me neither.
did. It was really something. And the way I'm kind of evaluating it is after I've sat back again, like obviously I still loved the trade from the beginning. I think the first tweet that came in was Cleveland has acquired Donovan Mitchell. Then the next one was like they gave up picks, and everyone's like, who the hell are the players? And I think we all kind of had a feeling Sexton had to be involved somehow. Lowry is that missing piece. But I guess I was talking with another one of my coworkers, one who actually did know ball and did know the Cavaliers. He's actually a Warriors fan. And he said, okay, think about it this way. Sexton didn't play last season for the most part, and you're successful. Obviously showed maybe some cracks later in the season. Definitely could have used that second scorer. LeVert was hit and miss at times. He said Sexton didn't play last year. Ochai Agbaji hasn't even played a single game for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Donovan Mitchell's better than Lauri Markkanen at the end of the day. I guess that's the way I've been looking at it is, I'm just trying to get Sexton and Agbaji kind of out of my mind because believe me, I miss Agbaji, I miss Markkanen, and I wish the best for Sexton. But at the end of the day, when you put that side by side, I guess I'd rather have this problem we have at the 3 right now and still be able to get Donovan Mitchell in the process.
Funnily enough, Justin, I don't think this is the tweet you're exactly referring to because this is from 2021, but this is already a year old. But NBA leaders in catch and shoot 3-point percentage this year, Donovan Mitchell, number 5. Honestly, what is interesting though, and it's a testament to Quinn Snyder out there in Utah, these 3 players are all Jazz players.
That's true.
So
Royce O'Neal's nice. He doesn't give enough credit.
I totally agree. But JB's got some work to do because I don't think you're not going to have a top 3 Cavalier players in that stat. Let's just say halfway through this year.
Sure.
You might have Garland and Mitchell in the top 2, but outside of that, it's unless Jetty Osman is playing at an all-star caliber level, I really don't see anybody else who could even get there. Logan, I'm glad that you transitioned us. Mack was already way ahead.
You know what I was doing?
Way ahead
there,
of the
Jeffrey.
game.
You know what I was doing there.
Who should start at the 3? It's September 7th. We got Cavs Media Day. I got my calendar over here. Cavs Media Day is the 26th, and then I'm assuming NBA training camp or whatever they refer to it as is soon thereafter. And then we do have games in October, but it still seems like a far way out. Mac, right now, if you're put yourself in the mind of JB, who are you starting at the 3?
It's complicated, man. From day one, I think you owe it to Isaac Okoro one last opportunity to prove that them selecting him at number 5, although that's a whole nother conversation, was worth it. And the problem with that is that Isaac, although he did bump his 3-point percentage up from 29 to 35% this season, lower volume. So you really don't know how good of a shooter he is, not to mention that pretty much all of his looks came uncontested. So you really do not know what you have in Isaac Okoro from beyond the arc. He has to become a reliable, or at least respectable shooter from range in order to have that gravity, not be completely centered around Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. As we know, that's what they're going to focus on. The other aspect to that is defensively. You have a backcourt of 6'1" collectively, and Isaac Okoro is generously, in my opinion, listed as 6'5". Mm-hmm. So Isaac Okoro was highly touted as a defender coming out of Auburn in his lone season there, but he's a respectable defender. He's a pretty high energy guy, high effort guy on the defensive end. But I don't know if we have actually seen him be like a clamper. Like, I don't know, especially against like wings, like threes, like true threes, LeBron James, Paul George's, those types, those sizes.
Are you starting Okoro in game 1 of a 7-game series against Brooklyn?
I think you start there, and I think the thing about this is that you don't have to necessarily play Okoro long minutes. You can start him there, and JB, that's where most of his headaches are going to come from, is the rotations themselves. When you have guys behind you like Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade chomping at the bit to get their chance to finally prove they belong, and that they deserve a lion's share of those minutes that Lowry vacated, you're going to have to figure out how to finagle those minutes. And that's where a lot of the tough conversations come in. And I think my runner up would probably be at this point, Dean Wade.
Hell yeah.
Because, and that's close. That's like 1A to 1B at this point in time, because like I said, you don't know just how good of a 3-point shooter Issac is right now, because we haven't seen enough volume from him. Once we start talking about 4 or 5 threes a game and we see those percentages, talk to me then about how good of a 3-point shooter is. Dean Wade, conversely, although he hasn't also had a high volume, he's larger, he's a better shooter at this point. I think that's fair to say. And he's a pretty good defender himself. And in his 28 starts this past season, he played some pretty good basketball. And, you know, I think the real challenge with Dean is going to be, can he be aggressive enough and do what the Cavs are going to need from him on a night-to-night basis on a consistent level? That probably makes it sound like I'm down on Lamar Stevens, and I'm not. It just speaks to the volume, you know, like the options here. And it's not like any of these guys are world breakers, but they all kind of have a different issue that they need to work on. And I think right now, Lamar's standpoint and his really the biggest hurdle in regards to him is that he's just not a great 3-point shooter right now. And I think when you're talking about who you're going to start next to your smallish backcourt who needs to at least space the floor a little, it's got to be one of Issac or Dean. I don't think Jetty even factors into this.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Although you know, my co-host Corey, you know, that's his guy. So
okay.
I like it. He's a fan
I'm at Issac right now.
Okay.
I mean, this is what I'll say about Issac Okoro. I think Mack makes a good point about you kind of owe it to him. When he was drafted, I mean, think about it. He was drafted into a role to kind of be, in a way at the time, what a tertiary scorer, because was Allen a part of the team yet? I don't think he was later in the season we acquired him, or was it right before that? I'm trying to remember.
His rookie season, he came. Jarrett came in, I want to say December, January, like that point in time.
Okay,
he was even like a secondary scorer.
So yeah, and I mean, like you had Sexton and Garland, and we didn't even know Garland was going to be as good as he is right now.
Yep.
So now in your situation, you are number 5 out of 5 that's going to be relied on for any kind of offense. So I think at the end of the day, if you give him this role where you're like, go lock down and cut to the basket, I think spacing becomes an issue. But like you said, I think with just so much off of him, he's truly just kind of the standalone guy on offense where he can kind of hide behind a pick, hide, you know, in the corner, and then make his move. I think it definitely could be a role that he could shine in. I've always said from the very beginning, he can be the Tony Allen of this team, of this new grit and grind Grizzlies team. You know, you had those grit and grind Grizzlies teams where it was Conley in the backcourt with his 2 front court mates and Randolph and Gasol. I see a lot of similarities in this Cavs team, maybe a little more flash, though, a little more speed, a little bit more youth, obviously. But that is the role that I think Okoro can fit and I think can shine in now that he has this defined new role.
I'm going to stick to Karis LeVert in the 3, be the contrary.
God,
all off.
I would never agree with you on this.
Like, what about the scoring punch and the playmaking without a healthy Rubio, without a Raul Neto? I think had a
Mac. Me and Justin got your back. Me and Justin have your back on this.
I know. I'm on a number here. I'm on a number here. But listen, I want to start. I want to start good though. I want to start great. I want to avalanche the first 5 minutes. I want to be up 15, 20 points on somebody at the end of the first quarter.
I
don't want to get that if you're going to sacrifice it. What good is that if you're going to sacrifice it in the third quarter?
Burnout? We used to come back from games down 17 because we'd get that punch.
No. Well, yes, last year we did, but we talked about this. That didn't work with elite teams. That didn't work against Philadelphia. That didn't work against Miami's. But
I'll give you that.
Now to go to Justin's. Now to throw to Justin, does Kobe Altman make another move because you're a big Justin Harold minutes per game aficionado on the Cleveland Pulse. Does Altman make another move to try to simplify the rotation for Bickerstaff? Like, let's just say Chetty plus picks or Okoro plus picks for like an actual 3, or are we riding this roster how it is?
I think that the commitment we know the commitment the Cavs have now with Okoro, with him not being in that trade for Donovan. I don't think they're going to give him up very easily or in a package that doesn't get you someone, who you immediately put into that starting lineup. For me, I'm surprised that Chetty wasn't in that Utah trade because for, weeks leading up to it, it was the Utah Jazz are very interested in Colin Sexton and Chetty. So I was expecting maybe Chetty to be in there and we get someone else back for him. But I don't know. At this point in time, it's like, are there players on this team that are, eye candy to other teams? I mean, Karis LeVert, he's gotten a bad shake in a lot of different places, and I don't think anyone's really going to buy high on him. So he's going to stay the year. He's going to play the year out. And then I know Mack and I have engaged on Twitter about like the roster in general, and this was back when we were talking about is Sexton even going to get signed back and everything, and just how top to bottom, it was filled out in my mind. And I think this trade made it a little bit easier, but at the same time, I still think there are at least 10 guys that are deserving of time. I think Dean Wade is someone who deserves to get we talk about Issac Okoro getting developmental time. I think that Lamar has gotten way better every year and has developed every year that I could bid on him being the starting three. I would actually really like him to be the starting three. I think you look at him and Isaac, and I think Lamar's a little bit bigger, and I think he can, when people try to put him in the post, I don't think he's going to be back down as easily as Isaac would. Now, the speed for some of those threes, who knows? But I think you get into that same conversation with Dean Wade is like, what are you giving up with, his physicality in terms of speed and all that, and covering the wide range of threes that you get in the NBA, the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, the Paul Georges, it's a tough job. But overall with this roster, I think you're going to ride it out. You're definitely going to ride it out until I think the whole year. I don't think anyone gets traded. I don't think any move is made before the deadline. Chetty, I just don't know what team would want Chetty at this point.
Have you given up on Dylan Windler?
Yes. Oh yeah, I have. I'm so sorry.
He has a chance now, actually, to make the roster, and sure. I think if you gave him considerable reps, if he was willing to take considerable reps like Chetty does, I think they probably would be comparable offensively. But that's another thing too. It's like, you got to be careful here if you're Altman, because you could try to, make another aggressive move and then kind of end up overplaying guys in the first half of the season, where we saw that didn't work well last year, especially with Rubio's injury, especially with Karis LeVert's injury history, especially with Kevin Love pushing 40. You got to be careful here.
Pushing 40.
I mean, he is. How old is he today? 37?
He's old.
But it's like his injury history is not great. I think, funnily enough, LeVert is plausibly the only player who could be traded in season.
I think you have to entertain that for him too, because, you just took on a pretty substantial amount of money in Donovan Mitchell. And although you sent Lowry packing to, help, alleviate some of that burden, we really don't know what Karis LeVert's role is going to be, and that's going to affect his next contract. I mean, if we're talking about paying a guy like Colin Sexton potential $6 million money, which we generally see anywhere between 13 to 17 million a season, Karis LeVert's going to be making over 18 mil this year, and his next deal could really eat into what you're going to do in regards to plans for Evan Mobley moving forward, and some of these other ancillary moves that you're going to have to make. So he probably is your most movable asset, but I don't think you want to really do that at this point, because you let go of Lowry. You really, although you only lost one rotation player technically, since Sexton didn't really suit up, but for 10 and a half, 11 games this season, and Ochai didn't even step foot on the court in a regular season game, you still gave up would-be rotation, like at least 3 would-be rotation players. So you got to get some bodies out there. My thing is, I think they should just stand pat, see what they have.
Yeah, for sure. You got to at least take this to the deadline. If you're not getting off to the start you have to remember that there's always an adjustment period. I mean, obviously, we saw it a couple of times when LeBron first returned, 19 and 20 to start, and then they started like 5 and 8 that year, where they got Wade and Rose and all the collection of old dudes. I mean, there's always gonna be that adjustment period the first 15 games. I don't think there's any cause or panic the first 20, which actually that brings me to my next question. Cavs fans. I mean, we talked about this, I think, before we got on. I want to talk about Cavs fans. I've seen you plenty of times go like, guys, calm the hell down on Twitter. What should be the expectation for Cavs fans this year? How should they react? What is overreacting? I mean, I just want to get your general thoughts.
Well, if you're asking me, last season I tried to keep it generally positive, even in the face of negativity, to a fault sometimes. But
You're
this
positive,
season,
yeah.
thanks. Yeah, this season, I think that there are real expectations, but it's important for us to remember that it's not just the Cavs that got better this offseason in the East.
For real.
You saw the Murray trade, and that, believe it or not, still does make Atlanta better, although they shipped out pieces for that. When, I don't know what you guys' reactions were on that at the time, but they got better.
Scary.
Brooklyn Nets, by way of not trading Kevin Durant and getting a healthy and hopefully mentally right Ben Simmons and
TJ Warren, right? Didn't they grab
yeah,
TJ
they
Warren?
signed TJ. You still technically have Kyrie. I don't know what Kyrie, if he's going to be suiting up for game 1 or not. Who knows if he'll be moved eventually. They have a pretty scary ass roster themselves.
Sixers just got Harrell today, Montrez, or was it yesterday? I don't know what it was.
There's gonna be
combining.
there's gonna be a good / great team in the East who, after the play-in, isn't in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes.
I think the expectation right now should probably be 5-6 seed at the, I think that's fair right now. I think it's really too generous for us to just assume that this trade vaults them into the top 3 of the East this season, especially when you have such a large question looming at what the hell is going on at 3 spot. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to stay there. But if anything less than that, if they get back to the playing game, I think people are going to start to look back at this deal just a little unfavorable on it because of what was shipped out.
What's your win total prediction? Have you released it, or are you holding on to it? If you're holding on to it for your own,
I'm not really big on that. So yeah, I'll tell you, I think they are somewhere around 46, 47 wins. I think it's really gonna, like, with how good the East is this season, I'm not sure how high 50 wins get you, like, in the East this year. That might be your 1-2 seed in the East this year.
I know, for real.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair. We were talking about that our last upload, but we were like on the north side of 50. Like,
I think I was saying 48, and then I said 53, and then I said 47.
I think 50's a good goal, and I think another thing just to go off of this conversation is that you got to kind of reset your patience meter with JB again. I know that at the end of last year, he was on people's nerves. I mean, it's his first 2 games in postseason basketball. I think postseason is the play-in, and then the playoffs is past the play-in to me. But did he manage those games particularly well? Who knows in hindsight? But now, not only is it a complete 180 from the big 3 lineup, it's actually a smaller lineup you have to manage. Now he has to manage some superstars. I'm not going to say that it's going to be an issue, but you never know with NBA players, with pro athletes. You got Donovan Mitchell, who's a perennial superstar. You have Darius Garland, who just got a huge contract. And you have Evan Mobley, who is expected to be, really, really good. And there has been some concern in the past about Jared Allen. Does he come to play 100% every single night? So there's a lot to manage as far as being a head coach that goes on behind the scenes that I think a lot of fans kind of discredit and discount and just say, oh, the rotations suck, which at some points last year they did.
They did.
But I mean, that's pretty much just what I would say is just be patient with the coaching staff, even though they should be good.
Yeah. Mac, I got a question for you. So you were listing off of, a couple of teams there when you were making your statement. I wanted to ask, with this trade and what Jeff just said with Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, the roster it's stacked right now. And I think it's one of the most talented in the Eastern Conference. But I wanted to ask you, what teams would you put ahead of us in terms of talent right now in the Eastern Conference? I mean, the only teams that come to my mind off the top of my head is the Boston Celtics, number 1 right away. And then top to bottom, it's tough to be like, yeah, these guys have more talented players than us. And now Brooklyn's got a lot of names, but you watch what that does.
Does it work? I get you.
Yeah. Is it the Lakers? Are you the Lakers? Are you the Nets? The Nets are a play-in team. But for me, the only other team that I can like look at and be like, hey, they got talent there, but they're also very well coached is the Miami Heat.
Yeah, if we're looking just in the context of the Eastern Conference, I think when you're looking at like purely talent, yeah, Miami, you have Boston up there, obviously. I can't downplay anything they did. They were in the NBA Finals for a reason, right? And Brooklyn on paper. I think the biggest things here are that one, the Cavs obviously have you can make a considerable argument for them having a top 3 like starting 5 without the 3, whoever starts at the 3 in the East. Problem is past that. So when you're talking about how deep certain teams are in the East, I just feel like that's where teams like the bench players, that's what's going to really, really differentiate the contenders from the pretenders here. And Brooklyn immediately for me comes to mind just because of that, because on paper, Kyrie, DJ Warren, bubble TJ, bubble Warren, whatever you want to call him.
Bubble. Oh my God.
He was awesome. Kyrie, I mean, he destroyed us in the playing game. And, Ben Simmons, people forget just how fucking good Ben Simmons is
you're not
at
wrong.
basketball. And that's pretty scary. And even like they could probably still sleepwalk their way to the playing game if they all play. But yeah, just Boston, Miami. If you want to talk about Milwaukee, I think by virtue of Giannis, that does
a lot for them for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I always said last year is that I think we have one of the better matchups with Milwaukee because I think Mobley and Allen kind of equals out one of Giannis, which is crazy to think because how good Mobley and Allen are, but it's just kind of
they are a pretty good matchup for us. It does seem that way.
They don't have a lot of the big names, but they got quality players, quality coaching staff, Holiday, Middleton, all
these
solid.
are all unsung guys. Guys who come in, play their part, know their role.
Yeah, right. That's who the Cavs. I mean, with the 4 plus whoever wants to be the 5th and step up, or even if it's a combination of players, that's even better. Honestly, I prefer rosters that are complementary. Even past the 5th player being our 3 position, but 6th and 7th player. That's how we've seen the Warriors build their dynasty: is have these players not really come out of nowhere, but they've kind of re-engineered and made close to elite, like Andrew Wiggins last year is the prime example. So
yeah. Jeffrey, I got a question for you, man.
Go on. Let's go.
So Donovan Mitchell, we know he is used to being the number 1, the de facto guy. The ball is in his hands every damn possession.
True.
Does that make you feel at least a little skeptical on his fit with Darius Garland and on who should really be operating as the primary option from the jump?
To be fair, that's what made me nervous about Colin Sexton being on the roster as far as Darius Garland's arrival. But
Donovan Mitchell exemplifies like the top of that. Like
I think that if that's a concern, that's valid. Just what we've heard though, as far as like the intangibles and the hypotheticals, I'm not that worried about it. That apparently Mitchell was extremely elated and excited to be traded to the Cavs. That's a huge one for me. And I think that Garland and him kind of have this little like history that we don't really know about.
It does seem that way, doesn't
Justin
it?
and
I Pro-Am showed something.
I'm telling you, Justin and I were at All-Star Weekend. They were not enemies at all. They were very friendly. They spoke multiple times. Me and Justin witnessed them having conversation like on the court at Rocket Mortgage. So
Love worked out with him and LeBron right recently.
Yeah,
I mean, I was like, that'd be interesting if he was on the Cavs.
I get it though. I get it though because he had issues with Gobert in the locker room. Like, is that a concern as well as far as him coming over? I don't know. I think if that's a valid point though, as far as is he going to gel? Will it take 15 to 20, 25 games? Probably. That's probably to be expected. But what I was telling these guys is that what Mitchell gives you attacking the rim isn't what Garland was ever going to give you. But now
Oh.
you have a one who's going to kill you in the mid-range, exquisite floater game, and of course from the three-point line and his passing. And now you have Mitchell at the two, who's you're going to have to protect the rim with him, and you're going to have to protect three-point line, and he's a decent passer. So I think their games could complement each other. And we had kind of agreed as a consensus that if we wanted anyone else this offseason in a Cavs uniform, it would have been DeJounte Murray. But we thought that Mitchell was a better fit. But I like the question.
I think for me, it's tough because, like, if you're talking about, like, who do I want to run the offense through, it's definitely Garland, 100%. But, when you get down to that, and I believe Jeff made a tweet about it, like a poll, like, if it comes down to the last shot, who do you rather want to have, Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell? Listen, I think it's noted that I am one of the biggest Darius Garland fans. Before last season started, was one of the biggest Darius Garland fans. I voted Spida. I'm not gonna lie.
I voted DG.
I voted DG. I voted DG.
You would vote Spida.
And listen,
I gotta say, I would take in this scenario, I would take Spida as well, because if we're really, let's be honest, guys, if Colin was still on the team, I think there's a considerable case to be made that you might want to put the ball in Colin's hands at that point in time. And Spida, we know he's overall a better player, but presents a lot of the same skill sets.
I like this response though. That response is actually the true answer. But
beautiful.
I think you gotta look at teams that have recently went out and gotten like dynamic duos, and like we just talked about them, Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. And that tweet right there, the response is perfect in comparison. It's like, listen, one of those two guys is going to have a matchup that is favorable for them. Now, if you only need two to win, Garland's great. Garland will get to the bucket, and I'm, very confident in his ability to get to the bucket and either draw a foul, knock down the free throws, or, just make the bucket easy. Now, when it comes to needing three, I've watched Garland falter in the moment. I think one of those moments was the Utah game where I immediately afterwards, I was like, man, the respect between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell is through the roof.
That was a great showdown.
Yeah, I think it shows like, hey, these two, it's going to be an interesting duo moving forward, because numbers might go down for Donovan in terms of points per game, but his assists might go up, and Garland's points per game might go up and his assists go down, or they both skyrocket. Who knows? But it's going to be very interesting to see how they operate the offense. That's why the starting five thing for me has never been a huge, with getting Mitchell, has not been a huge issue in my mind. It's more about who do you think will finish the game, and do you really need that fifth option offensively?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it, but was anyone a little concerned about Sexton's injury? I mean, with maybe I'm, like I said, I'm reading too much into it. I don't think Mack really was too worried about it. But I guess for me, it's just kind of like Mitchell has to readjust because he's going into a new team. Sexton has to readjust because his backcourt mate got really freaking good while he was gone. And I don't know. I mean, I think Sexton and Garland like each other enough. It seemed like they sure did and got along. They call each other best friends on, I think, Draymond's podcast. I was listening to it. Believe it or not, I shouldn't be listening to that crap. But I just kind of get the sense that, Sexton is the kind of guy that's like, he's a competitor, right? He wants to kick your ass. I feel like sometimes when he's going to come back from this injury, he wanted to prove himself. And I was always wondering if that was going to cause headaches. Like, is he trying too hard to get himself back into basketball shape? Is he trying too hard to be the first option or 1A, 1B? I guess with Mitchell, it's kind of like, I already know what I got last year, and I'm just adding a superstar. And I guess that's the way I just have to look at it. And believe me, Mac, I started coming around to the idea of Sexton rejoining this team. I think they'll tell you the same thing. At first, I tried to get him off it. First, I was kind of like, you know what, run it back. We only saw we're 7-4 or something like that with him this season. At the end of the day, and I thought about running it back. But at the end of the day, you get a perennial all-star. We could come back to regret it, but you got to swing. And if you miss, you miss. But no one can say it until you get the bat on your shoulder, right?
You don't how often do you get the opportunity to acquire a top 25 player in his prime, under 25, you're just turned 26
3 years on his contract too,
especially in Cleveland.
Yeah,
Cleveland's
a market here that history doesn't favor in regards to attracting prime talent, especially at that position. So I mean, I think they had no choice but to really do that deal because, one, to your point about Colin, look, I'm not going to mince words here. I wanted Colin to be a part of the next step here,
I get it.
because he's the one that really kicked off the rebuild. But at the same time, it was going to take Colin some time to get back to where he was. And yeah, there is a bit of a concern here in regards to, well, if he signs the qualifying offer, is he going to go out there and try and get his money? Is he going to try and, play his offense, play his game to the best of his ability at the detriment of the rest of the team?
Right.
I don't think that was a huge concern, but it was something that was probably going to linger in most of our minds, right?
Right.
As Cavs fans. With Donovan, like you said, you already know what you're going to get. You know that he's a perennial all-star. My biggest concern with him right now, outside of the play, is just the fit in regards to, one, on defense. We know that notably, is it fair to say that Donovan Mitchell is a better defender than Colin? I think so.
I think so.
I think
when he's inspired, sure,
Mhm.
sure,
Yeah. Effort wise, I think from a just pure build, although listed as 6'1", he's
plays
bigger than
bigger.
Colin.
He's like Dwayne Wade, right? In that regard.
So he plays bigger. And then the other question there again that I posed already was, the leader, and I call it the alpha, however you want to word that. I don't know what that does to. I don't know if it stunts Darius's growth or anything. So I have to see.
I think, and interestingly enough, as far as if we never made this move, I was really going to be a huge proponent of having Evan Mobley touch the ball considerable amount this upcoming season. But now he's still going to be. I mean, him and Jarrett Allen are going to get extremely good looks because that's just, I think, the nature of having two
Lobs on lobs.
close to elite guards. One on the cusp and one who's already there. So I'm not too worried about the fit as far as like how it's going to work. Let's say 50 games in, maybe, like I said, the first up until the deadline or, the first month or two, it might be interesting. And we might, like I said, have to have the patience, which I'm fine with. I think that Mitchell's, youth, everybody's youth kind of gives you some time to figure it out, which was not making me nervous about last year's team, but it's like we didn't really have someone who's established outside of Kevin Love, who we could be like, okay, in 2 years, we know this team's going to be really good. But I think even 6 months from now, we're going to be like, okay, this team, we already know that this team could be really good.
Right.
I think we're going to wrap it up there. We always
go long.
We always go long, but it's like, oh, it doesn't even feel like that long. It feels like 5 minutes when you're having fun, when you're talking Cavs. Mack Perry from the It's Cavalier podcast. He's very cavalier. We've appreciated his time, his input. We appreciated picking his brain. We don't talk to a whole lot of people who are, kind of in the space with us as much as we'd like to. Every single episode, we love to have somebody on. So, Mac, if you know anybody who would like to hop on for an upload over here at the Cleveland Pulse, let us know. And once again, we really appreciate it. We had a great time doing this tonight. And anything else you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Thanks for having me on, fellas. No, man, I don't really have too much else. I'm just excited for this season to start. It feels like it's forever, but it's already September, so we just got to hang in there. Jerseys just went on pre-sale.
What jerseys you buying?
I already bought one. I got the Mobley wine. I'm thinking about the black one whenever that's available. I'll probably get that in a Mitchell. Got to show some love there, but yeah, I had to get one.
I got to see how they look on the floor first. I got to wait. I'm not sold
yet. Where are our city editions?
I'm telling you, bro.
I see that these other teams are dropping their city editions every day. Like Detroit's came out today. I'm like, when? They're just going to spring it on us. I know, but like when?
Yeah, I know. I want to be ready. I want to be ready for those 2010 uniform to reemerge.
The reorder for the white ones came out, and you guys all know. I told you as soon as we got Mitchell, I was ordering it, and it's been done.
It's gonna look clean.
Done.
45.
They look a lot better. They look a lot better in person. I'll tell you that.
What you tweeted out, the pictures you tweeted out look a lot better than what the Cavs put on their website. I was like, how is this even possible? But here we are. All right. For Logan, for Justin, for special guest, Mack Perry, this has been Cavs Encapsulated Crew, and we'll be back talking Cavs. Hopefully we could have Mack on during the season, maybe some live post-game shows. We could have him hop in the StreamYard. I love doing it like this. It's easy, seamless, perfect way to do it. We really appreciate you guys watching. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed. Turn on the bell notification, and make sure that you root for the Cavs. I'm not going to say it. I was going to say it, but I'm not going to say it. We're going to wait for this year's slogan. We're going to wait for this year's slogan before I do it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.